royal war with number 10, and this is about...
Another war? How many can we have?
Well, no, it's about the Queen's anger at flop equipment, and I can understand. I mean, if I was her and my boys were going out to war in that way, you want them to have fantastic equipment. You know, apparently the steering's all not great on this
She hasn't spoken out directly in
No,
person,
it's all, you know,
it's
alleged
true.
and all of that stuff. But it does bring up, you know, an interesting story, though, really, you know, about faulty equipment, because I know that if I was at war, you would expect everything to be working. So, you know, I wouldn't like that myself. I think it's dreadful if that is actually happening, and I can understand if the Queen has been venting anger.
Plus, indirectly, like, it's her name on this stuff, you know, Royal Marines.
Well, yeah,
good point.
You'd feel some sense of responsibility. The next
make it sound so simple when you put it like that.
The next story is from The Times. It's about scouts banned from carrying knives as chiefs get a handle on health and safety. Well, I think it's good for children, in my point of view, to learn how to use knives properly, not as weapons, obviously, but, I mean, like a chef would, so they don't chop their fingers off. You know, I think it's, you know, because knives are in our lives, whether we like it or not, domestically, they're in our lives for...
We've got
they save our lives
out coming on the show later this week. I'd love to know her thoughts on
you know, and I
what
can
she
understand everyone saying dangerous it is, but, you know, isn't that the point to, like, ban it? But how are children ever going to learn the value of a sharp blade if you don't teach them how to do it and how to act responsibly with that, you know? And I think that has to be instilled in a child very early.
Rather than banning everything,
rather than banning it, because that'll just make them want to use it even more, you know, because I couldn't wait to get my pocket knife when I was a kid, you know, just to make, you know, sort of sharp objects to stab people with. Like my sister. Joking.
Good.
Next little story I've got is quite a big story. Well, it's only big because it's 60 million years old and a bit of a dinosaur. It's being sold for 4.8 million. So if anyone's got some room for one of these big babies, darling, it's huger than a big double-decker bus.
Quite a cool thing to have at home, wouldn't it?
It's going to be auctioned. So, so that's something to look forward in the future. And something else to look forward to in the future is another story. Champagne this Christmas is going to be £10 a bottle.
Get away.
No,
real champagne. Proper champagne from France champagne.
Proper fizz. None of that stuff you get from Australia and South Africa and, like, blanc de blancy, bubbly stuff. But proper stuff, only because I think there's a big old overload of it. So, so I'd be getting in early, darling, because the more you buy, I think, you know...
The cheaper
the price,
it gets.
Yeah, exactly. Very well.
It's nice that the price of champagne is dropping, but the price of second-hand dinosaurs is it's ridiculous. I remember you used to be able to get a Brachiosaurus for 2.4 million.
After the break, I just want to have a laugh. We're going to talk about social services. We're asking if they should take babies away from bad families at birth. It sounds drastic to me, but maybe this is what's needed if we're to avoid more stories of 10 and 11-year-old kids torturing other youngsters. The head of the children's charity, Bernardo, says we should stop trying to fix families that can't be fixed. But are care homes, foster parents and enforced adoption really a better bet? 0207 173 5555 is the number for your thoughts. We'll hear as many of those as we can after a short break. Don't go.
So how many kids are in care in the UK? The answer is 60,000.
You're watching The Right Stuff. We're live on 5 with Craig Revel-Horwood, Janet Ellis and the comic Ed Byrne. Still to come this morning, we want your views, please, on this so-called real woman model, Lizzie Miller. I mean, just how real is she? She has a bit of a belly. Does that mean she represents you? 0207 173 5555. That's the number for your thoughts. Would you like to see more women like that gracing catwalks and fashion mags? First, we'll have a couple of emails on the BNP.
First, we have one from Ben, who says, in the 80s and early 90s, Gerry Adams was denied the oxygen of publicity. The same should be applied to the BNP.
Well, I don't know how successful it was, though. I mean, all they did was replace his voice with that of actors. I mean, you know, and now they have legitimate politicians and we have peace in Northern Ireland. I don't know quite how that one works. Okay.
We've got another one here from Loop. It's a golden opportunity to publicly expose and challenge the BNP's simplistic and racist policies, as well as showing how unfit to govern those wannabe dictators are in front of millions of viewers.
OK, OK. OK, now I want your reaction to calls by Bernardo's boss, Martin Neri, to take newborn babies away from bad families at birth. Speaking just days after the trial of the so-called devil boys at Doncaster, the 10 and 11-year-olds who tortured and sexually abused two other lads, Neri said we should stop trying to fix families that can't be fixed. I'm quoting here, it sounds terrible, but I think we try too hard with birth parents, he said. I've seen children sent back to homes that I certainly wouldn't have sent them back to. If you can take a baby very young, I think that's understood, if you take a baby very young and get them quickly into a permanent adoptive home, then we know that is where we have success. This is what the controversial Bernardo's boss said. He went on, that's a view seen as heresy amongst social services, where the thinking is that if a parent has failed, they deserve another chance. If we really cared about the interests of the child, we would take children away as babies and put them into permanent adoptive families where we know they will have the best possible outcome. Kind of outrageous comments. Children's Secretary Ed Byrne has already taken issue with them, and I can understand why social workers have a problem with his views too. I mean, say the babies don't go straight to adoptive parents and end up in care. 3/4 of the 60,000 children in care leave without any qualifications. 1 in 5 ends up homeless. So is Martin Neri onto something here? I'm going to start with you, Craig. What do you think?
Well, I sort of agree and I disagree. I agree with the fact that the kids need to be looked after if they've got abusive parents. Because I've had one abusive parent. My mum was great, but my father was an alcoholic and was abusive. So I think it would have been really great if we had been taken out of that environment, but I was a lot older. Now, if you're a baby, you can only scream and cry, you know, and then it's unfortunate that the baby has to be hurt in some way before it's removed. And that's why I sort of agree with actually taking the babies if the parents have been abusive to other children beforehand away.
To be fair to social services, we already do, in some cases, take babies away from their mothers and families just after they've been born. So it already happens. By saying bad families, I mean, it's a fairly indefinable term. I mean, what is a bad family, Janet? I mean... I
think that it is the wrong term to use. I think damaged, disadvantaged, uneducated, simplistic, whatever. Those are all words that you could use about people who have children unthinkingly, perhaps, in circumstances where they're not intending fully to care for them to young adult and beyond. But the problem with this, I think, is that, and he's highlighted rightly, I think, that we put too much emphasis on giving the baby back to the mother for another chance, because whose chance is it? You know, I feel that she's had hers. But the adoption process is so complicated that there are always families wanting children and children in care, and the two are seldom put together quickly enough. I'm sure you could rush it through for a baby, but is that the right thing to do? And of course, the adoption process means that the birth mother is now involved right the way along as well. It's not like in the olden days where you had to trace back to find your birth mother. Nowadays, you are fully informed of who she was. If she wants, she can keep in touch. There are even meetings allowed. So I think it's somewhere in between. It's somewhere in between the forcible removing, as this sounds, of a baby at its mother's breast in the hospital, and the care that those people need.
I still want to know, for what crime? What has the mother done that deems her child, her newborn baby, has to be taken away? There's the case, isn't there, the woman, I think she said 14 children taken into care, and
yes.
I think she's pregnant, says she's going to keep having children until she's allowed to keep one.
Yes, well, I remember the last series we debated the girl whose baby was being taken away from her for adoption because she hadn't cared enough in the hospital, the baby had difficulties at birth, and at that time we all said, we don't know the facts of this. You know, the bald statement sounds appalling, and it does sound like a child clinging to its mother's skirts and being forcibly dragged away. But I think there is a programme of care that is missing in all these statements. And I think the American model, which they've tried quite successfully in Harlem, is much healthier, where they start parenting teenagers before they have children. So in other words, the families are taught how to be families, they are taught how to live with children, the fact that they are a complete 24/7 commitment. They are, in fact, all given parenting, all together. And I think that's what we need to focus on.
I don't know about you, Ed, but when I walk around London,